Chumash and Rashi, double parsha, double portion. Acharei-Kedoshim, we're in the sixth reading. In the second portion of Kedoshim, we are in chapter 19, verse 33. Got it?
1933.
1933.
1933. It's not a good year.
Okay. Kiyagar itcha, when he will dwell with you, ger, a convert will dwell with you, ba'artzachem, in your land. Oh, we had this in reference in the JLI. First class was about converts, unique converts. Spoke Onkelos, Ovadia.
Onkelos is convert.
Yeah.
Oh.
Avram ben Avram. And we mentioned this mitzvah over here, a special mitzvah as someone who converts of Eino, as it's called. Translates over here, taunt. Let's see, Rashi in in 33.
No.
Loisa Einu. Don't harass. Einos dvorim. This is verbal harassment. Leiseimar loi. Don't say to him, wow. Last night or in the past, you were an idolater. And now you have come to learn Torah. Maybe that came from God. Now, don't say that to him. Don't remind him of his past.
That's an angel person.
Hmm?
Never mind.
Right?
Yeah.
Look at that. Okay. 34. Ke'ezrach mikem, like a native from you, of you. Iya lachem, he should be for you. Hager, this convert, Hagar itchem, that dwells amongst you. Ve'ahavta and you should love him. Kamecha, like you. Ki gerim ha'yisem be'eretz mitzrayim, because you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Ani Hashem Elokechem, I am Hashem, your God.
We were all converts.
Well, yeah, that's what the verse is saying. We were all strangers. Gerim over here means strangers. Let's see Rashi. Okay, because you were strangers, mum shebecha, meaning the imperfection that exists on you, the blemish. Al temer bechabercha, don't say it on your friend. In other words, what do you mean that you were? What does it mean? So you were strangers in land. In other words, you will have the same mum, the same blemish. So don't look at another person and put the blemish on them, right? You spot it, you got it. This is where it comes from. This idea.
You spotted, you got it. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, got it.
Could it mean
Did you spot it?
I got it.
You got it. Huh?
Got it. I was just going to ask could this also mean to say that Bnei Israel would understand what it's like to be like the other?
That's exactly what it's saying.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly the point.
So
in other words, you yourselves were strangers in a land, right? You didn't belong. It wasn't your place. You didn't belong, right? So you know what that means, what that feels like. So don't put that upon someone else and make them feel as a stranger, right?
Especially if that person has become is now.
No, that's specifically what we're talking about. Talking about someone who became Jewish. Convert. That's what the verse is talking about.
Yeah.
Not talking about anything else, but a convert. Right? Okay.
Yeah. You just convert.
Okay, 35. So those are two mitzvahs. One's a negative and one's a positive towards convert. Don't pervert justice. Don't pervert justice, not when it comes to measures of length. Mida is length. Mishkal is weight. Surah is volume. Got it? Let's see Rashi, 35. Also of a b'mishpat, don't wrong injustice. Don't do wrong when it comes to Sha'im, L'dayim. If this is a commandment addressed to a judge, it's already been said. These words have already been said in verse number 15. We're at verse 35 now, but in verse 15, it already said these very same words. Right? So then what is the justice speaking over here? It's not repeating the same thing. Here it's speaking about calculation of measurements of weight and volume, right? Melamed, this teaches us, Sha'amaydid is someone who measures something to be sold. Nikra Dayan is called a judge. If he's going to lie with the measurement, it's like someone perverts the judgment. And this is called a wrongdoer. And it's hateful. And repulsive. And this person's banned. Is an abomination. Right? This is the exact same thing that we mentioned previously. This person is doing. Right? As we spoke about a judge when he also perverts justice. And he causes these 5 things, that said about a judge who perverts the judgment. He contaminates the land. He profanes the name of God. And he causes the Shekhinah, the divine presence of God, to depart. And he causes the Jewish people to fall by the sword of the enemies. And he causes them to be exiled from their land. Whoa, 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 whoa. In other words, if you do business and you're dishonest, right, in the weights that you have and so on, then this is what you're causing. Wow. Okay, Rashi, next Rashi, Bamida, a measurement, Zumida Sa'aretz, there's a measurement of the length of the land. In other words, let's say you are selling him a piece of land and you measured it, right? And you, with a faulty measurement, you sold the land. The mishkal, weight, as it sounds. In other words, you're selling fruit and you have improper weights. Of a Mesura, he midas halach, this is volume of liquid, and that which is also dry. It's volume, right? As opposed to weight. Okay. So that was the negative. Now he says, Oznei tzedek means scales that are righteous, meaning accurate. Avnei tzedek, and stones that are righteous. Ephas tzedek, and an epha that is accurate. Tzedek means, right, correct, righteous, meaning accurate, right? Vihin tzedek, and a hin that's tzedek. Remember, Rashi is going to explain all of this to us, what these words are. Ani Hashem Elokeichem, I am Hashem, your God. Asher tzeitzei eschem eretz Mitzrayim, that took you out of Egypt. Rashi, avnei tzedek, so correct stones. Hey, my mishkolos, these are the weights, right? Because what would you have on one side of the scale? You'd have a stone that weighed, 2 kilos. And then you put, or a kilo, whatever it is. And you put on this side, the bananas that you're selling, whatever you're selling. Sheshaiklim kenegdam, they're weighed against it. Efa, he midas hayavash, that's a dry measure. Hin, right, du midas halach, this is a liquid measure. That I brought you forth, on condition that you keep honest weights and measures, That's why I brought you out of Egypt. Pretty powerful, huh?
Yes.
That I distinguish b'Mitzrayim and Egypt between the droplet that is that conceived the firstborn latipas she'ena shel bechor, the droplet of the seed of the father that's not causing conception of the firstborn. And I am the one who can be trusted to exact punishment. As I exacted punishment in Egypt, knowing who's the firstborn, who's not the firstborn, right? Of the Egyptians. I am also trusted that I will exact punishment. That someone who stores his weights in salt. Lahainus is a bria is to cheat people. Makirin by him that do not know about them.
The weights must have been porous, not metal, to absorb the salt.
Yeah.
What's that different?
They buried the measurements in salt. They couldn't be metal because metal doesn't absorb salt, so they had to be porous, like ceramic or something like that. So that's just what I thought.
Or a stone. A stone is porous.
Yeah.
A stone is porous, right? So that's could have been used that. It could have
That's right.
used that, and therefore it's absorbing the salt, increasing its weight.
Not nice.
I don't get that though.
What do you mean?
Doesn't make sense to me. It's increasing the weight.
Yeah.
So that means before it would have been 1 kilo, now it's 1 kilo 2. So that means you're getting more. How is it that you're giving more, not less?
It takes away.
No, no, that's what the Gemara says. It absorbs some of it and thereby increases its weight.
It says alters here.
Yeah, but oh, 1 second.
So the sucks out the liquid, the salt from the stone.
Eats away the light, makes it lighter. Okay. It seems like there's different understanding of it in the Gemara.
So this one is lessens the weight.
It eats away. The salt eats away from it, makes it lighter.
That's how they.
That's Rashi to Rebbeinu Tam say that.
Right again.
Okay, 37. Shmartim is kol chukaisai. You should safeguard all of my statutory laws. V'zkol mishpatai and all of my ordinances. V'sismaisam and you shall do them. Ani Hashem, I am God. We're at chapter number 20, verse number 1. Yeah, we're good,
Yeah.
folks.
The bear. Shem. I heard that from
And Hashem spoke to Moshe saying, Bnei Israel, Tamar, to the children of Israel, to the Israelites, he should say, Ish, man, meaning every individual, Bnei Israel, from the children of Israel, Ager, and from the convert Agar, Israel, and from the convert that dwells among Israel, Asher Yitain Mizarai, that will give from his seed Lamelech to, this is in a pagan idolatry called Melech. Moisyumas, he will die.
What's more?
It's an pagan idolatry. We'll see. Right?
Yes.
Yumas, he will die. Right? He must die, put to death. Haaretz Yirgemu ba'aven. The people, I should pelt them with stones. Rashi. 2. Well, Bnei Israel, Tamar, to the children of Israel, you shall say, Onchan ha'alazoris, the punishment for the negative commandment. This is in Torah we have 2 things. We called something called an azara, which means a forewarning that that it is a commandment, a negative commandment, right? And then you have punishment. two separate things. Torah gives it in two different instances. Gives the prohibition, and then in another instant, it will give you the punishment. What's it doing over here? Huh?
Now to give the punishment.
It's giving the punishment, exactly, right? Because it's giving they be stoned to death, right? But the most common phrase, look at what it says here, "V'yidaber Hashem el Moshe leimor." God spoke to Moshe saying, so are you following? Yeah?
Mhm.
So usually it says, Daber b'nei Israel, speak to the children of Israel, right? The Daber b'nei Israel doesn't say that over here. It says, Ve'el b'nei Israel tidaber. And it says, Yidaber Hashem, Moshe spoke to, Hashem spoke to Moshe saying, it should say, Daber b'nei Israel, right? No, it says, Ve'el Israel tidaber. And to the children of Israel you shall speak. What do you mean and? What do you mean the and over here, right? It's not translated properly, by the way. Okay? I shouldn't say it's not translated properly. It's translating it to make it simpler understanding, but it's taking away from nuance, right? Yeah. So our verse is speaking and the children of Israel because it's linking to an earlier section where it states the punishment for transgression of a negative commandment.
Parsha for it.
Okay. Okay, let's see Rashi. Continue with Rashi, I'm sorry.
Sounds like anarchy. I don't know. Never mind.
Mois Yumas, he shall be put to death based in with the court of law. The im in based, and if the court of law doesn't have power to put him to death, say the people of the land assist them.
Weird.
Shh.
Sounds like anarchy. They're taking it upon themselves.
No, it doesn't. No, they help. The court of law has to go through the court of law. But then Rashi's problem over here is that it can't be anarchy. Exactly. That's his problem over here. It sounds like anarchy from the verse, right?
Mhm.
That they're taking it into their own hands. No, it can't be. That's against Torah law. It has to go through the court system. If the court system isn't able to fulfill this, right? So they need the help of the people. That's what it means. That's what it means
The
over here.
actual action you're talking about?
They have to assist the court. It has to go through the court. There has to be a judgment in court before this is done, right?
Okay.
Right? The verse doesn't sound that way, but that's what Rashi is saying. So sometimes the court it doesn't have enough strength. I don't know what it means to people. I don't know, does it mean the people as police, that they're acting as the police, enforcing the law, or is it, I'm not very clear what it means, but it does mean that it still has to, what Rashi wants to bring out is it has to go through the court.
Yeah.
So what's the verse saying over here? That if there isn't sufficient power for the court to fulfill what it needs to fulfill, because they're judges in the end. So then the people have a responsibility. So I don't know if it means people have a responsibility as police officers, if they're appointed as police officers, to assist the court in fulfilling what the judgment is of the court.
Not general public is showing them.
I said I'm not clear on that. Not clear on that.
It sounds like the person who asked you the execution is beyond the court.
Rashi says they assist. They're assisting the court. How that plays itself out, I'm not clear.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Amar, it's the people of the land. The people on whose account that you created the land. Interesting. Davar acher, alternative explanation. Am shasirim liyiresh aretz. The people are destined to inherit the land al yedei mitzvahs alala because of these commandments. All right. We need some of the Rebbe's explanation over here. Okay, 3. Ani etin is and as for me, God is speaking, right? Etain, I will place espanai, my face, meaning my attention, right? Where your face goes, that's where your attention goes. Be isha, who in that person, meaning that, who's that person? Who's that person?
The person broke the law,
Which person? What did he do?
messed around with the scale.
No, we finished with the scales. Moilech, the pagan idolatry of Moilech, right? That he got involved in that, right?
Yes.
That's the court. As for God now saying, as for me, I'm going to turn my attention to, and I will cut him off from the midst of his people. Why? Ki mizarai, because from his seed, right, his offspring, his seed, nasan l'melech, he gave to Melech. Leman time is mikdashi, in order, and thereby, what did he do? He defiled my mikdashi, my sanctuary. Right, the mikdashi means my holiness. Well, we'll see what Rashi says on that. And to profane my holy name. Rashi in 3, yeah.
Yeah.
Etin is panai. I will direct my face. Panai shili, my attention, meaning I set aside from all my concerns. I say, and deal with him. Whoa, this is serious.
There is.
Ba'ish, and that man, oh, why that man? How about if it was a community that was engaged? No, but not in the community. She'ain called tzibur nichrosim, because you don't have the idea of an entire community to be cut off from God. You don't have that. An individual could be, but not the community. Wow.
Cut off from God doesn't necessarily mean.
Cut off from God means over here premature death. Right? Why? Because he's given from his offspring to Moilech. Because it says, so this is now the part of the ceremony, if you will, or part of the worship, as we will learn later on in Deuteronomy, that he makes his son and daughter pass through fire. From where do I know that the prohibition applies to the son of his son and the daughter, son of his daughter? In other words, it's not just to his children, but even grandchildren. Because the verse says, he gave from his offspring. In other words, it's not merely his children, but any offspring of his that he gave to this idolatry. Where do we know that even unfit offspring, that there's a prohibition? Because the verse says, because he is given from his offspring to Melech. In other words, superfluous to say that. That's that. Besito is the next verse, and the next verse says that. So it's a superfluous. It's to bring out that even if he gave offspring that were not, from that were not illegitimate children, he had a relationship outside of marriage. Even then. The man time is mikdashi, because you have defiled that which is sacred to me. What's that? So I said sanctuary when I translate, but it means holiness. But Rashi says it's Knesset Yisrael. You've defiled the assembly of the Jewish people. Because they are sanctified to me, the Jewish people. And it doesn't mean that desecrate that which is holy to me, mine which is holy. No, it means that which is holy. That's the Jewish people. You've desecrated the Jewish people. Number 4. V'im halim yalimai am haaretz. And if they will kind of hide it, they will, in other words, ignore, hide the people. As einayim, their eyes, mina isha, from that person. Okay, let him be in his idolatry. V'sita mizara l'meila, that he gives over his offspring to Melech, levilti hamisai, not to put him to death. So next verse will continue. But let's see Rashi on this verse. Right in the middle of a thought. If the people will avert, if they avert their eyes on one matter, so if they will avert their eyes from many things. Rashi is bringing up from halim yalimu, means if they avert, they will avert. Meaning, if you avert from one thing, that's what Rashi is taking from the words, right? It's a double, it's double language over here to bring out the idea that if you avert from one thing, eventually you're going to avert from many things, right? So if you will avert your eyes from many matters. If the lesser court averts their eyes, then it will be the great Sanhedrin will avert their eyes. So in other words, it's on an individual level and also on a collective level of the court of law, right? What will then happen if you avert? Then I will set my face towards my attention towards that person, and to his family. And I will cut him off. And all those that stray after, they go after Acharei Melech, that are straying after Melech, amongst the people of Israel. Rashi in 5. Yeah, we're following everybody.
Sure.
Amazing. Mishpachta and his family, Omar Reb Shimon. Reb Shimon said, you know who that Reb Shimon is?
You want?
Yeah, who is that? Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. Ma mishpacha ma'achata. And why what did the family sin? Why should they be punished, right? What did they sin? He asks, Ella, so what does it mean over here, Lamadcha? This is a teacher, that you don't have any family, in which there is an unjust tax collector, that they do not cover up on that, in which then all are not unjust tax collectors. Shekulam mechapi mola, because all of them cover him up and support him in his sin. Wow. They're all part of the conspiracy, yeah.
Because they benefit as well too. They benefit directly.
They're benefiting, and yeah, they're benefiting. So they're covering them up. Interesting. And I will cut him off from amongst his people. Why is it stated? It was already stated in verse number 3, right? Look at verse number 3. It says there, the exact same words, right? So why does it say? Because it says his family. You might think the entire family should also be included in this punishment of karis, meaning premature death. But the verse comes to say oisai, him, meaning oisai karis. He gets the punishment. The one who served the idolatry gets the punishment of karis. But not the entire family. They don't get premature death because they only hid him. They just didn't, deal with the issue that he was off the strayed, right? But they will have Yisurim punishment of, they will suffer pain and punishment. These nice Acharei Melech, to stray after Melech, the rabbis Shara V'Dezera. Why is this stated? We know we're speaking about Melech over here, right? So why does it have to say that? So Rashi says it means to include other forms of idolatry, that they worshipped in such a manner, even though this is not the standard way to serve it. In other words, if you worship a different pagan deity, right, in the manner that you worship Melech, by passing your offspring through 2 bonfires, then you would get kares, even though that deity is not usually served in that manner. Because usually to get kares, meaning premature death, you have to serve the idolatry the way it is normally served. But what if you served a different pagan idolatry, not Melech, but you also made 2 fires and you had your children or offspring go, between the fires, right, as a service, but it was not the pagan Melech, it was a different one, Baal, right? You did it to Baal, right? A different pagan deity. You'd also be cut off premature death. That's what Rashi is saying. Verse number 6. The person who will turn tifne again for panim. Panai here means to turn, right? Is avais is he brings over here spirit of divination, right? It's again a type of idolatry, or it's seeking the spirits. Ela yidyanim, or to the yidyanim, a yada kind of divination. Please, Acharei to stray after them, and who I will give my attention in that person, and I will cut him off from amongst his people. You must be holy. And you shall sanctify yourself to become holy. When you will become holy, because I am Hashem your God. What does that mean? What does it mean that you should sanctify yourself? Zuprishas avodas are. This means to distance yourself from idolatry.
Shows such an absolute abhorrence to idolatry.
Yeah.
Focusing all his attention. That's pretty, taking away from the stars, the universe, and creation, and this and that, all his attention. That's pretty heavy.
But in this last pasuk here, is this what King Shaul was guilty of when he went to the when he saw the witch?
Yeah, that's what
Witch of Endor.
They sound like witches.
Rabbi?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Pasuk 6 here. This
Yeah.
is what King Shaul was guilty of, wasn't he? When he went when he sought advice from the witch at Endor.
Yeah, sounds.
These are witches too that were
But
referring
Yeah, I don't know if it's the exact same thing. I'm not certain.
Okay. Because shortly afterwards he got it.
That was also mostly because of Amalek. That's why he died. He didn't want to cut off his seed.
Right. He told me
That's why Hitler and Hamas and Haman. If he would have done it then, there wouldn't have been any of those horrible people and movements.
And I wouldn't have known.
Why, David Saul?
That could be different. I would have the skills of meeting.
He cut off or didn't cut off?
If he did.
He didn't?
If he did the correct thing,
Yeah,
we would have been able to.
why not?
Huh?
Huh? We wouldn't be together if he did the right thing.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Why would we be together?
Life would have been so different.
But Torah's Torah.
How can we take it against the Torah?
No, I'm with you. I'm just having a discussion. I just want to be saying.
To confirm?
I have an idea. I don't know. It's funny. You do.
generation, parce que tu as aucune idée.
Well, anyway, thank God that we know each other.
En raison de Roy.
So yesterday we learned that you should love your friend as yourself, referring to a fellow Jew. Amar Rabbi Akiva zeklal gol b'Torah. Rashi said, Rabbi Akiva says it's a major principle in Torah. So, question is that many generations before Rabbi Akiva said this, Hillel, who lived 150, 200 years before him, he said already that the mitzvah of Ahavas Yisrael is the entire Torah. And the rest is just commentary, right? Which sounds even more than just a great principle, right? It's the entire Torah. It's not just a great principle. So why would Rashi not quote from him? So the answer, not on a simple level, but in a deeper level, Pneumius. So, okay. We know that God's thought for the Jewish people prefaced everything. Even Torah, as the Jewish people are greater than Torah. On the other hand, how do when we connect to Torah, that connects us to God. In other words, Torah is greater than us. And our connection comes through Torah. So we have a contradiction. Are we greater than Torah? Or are we lesser than Torah? So Chassidus explains it depends on what perspective we're talking about. In the root source above, then Jews are greater than Torah. However, when the soul comes down into this physical world in a body, that great quality of the Jewish soul is not recognizable in a revealed way. Therefore, everything that is spoken of in Torah is for the Yidden, that they need Torah in order that they can connect themselves to God.
I thought Torah was created before creation.
And the Jew is also in God's thought before Torah. It's even greater. So that's what we just explained, right?
Yeah.
So according to this, then we can understand the difference between what Rabbi Akiva said and Hillel said on this verse. Hillel is speaking about the way things are in their root source. Therefore, he says the love of a fellow Jew is the entire Torah. It's not just a great principle, it's everything. Because on this level, the Bnei Israel are greater than Torah. Right? Right? Exactly. By Rabbi Akiva speaking, the way to fulfill the mitzvah of fulfilling Ahavas Yisrael, the way we have to do it in actuality in this physical world, in a daily living, in this world. On this level, Ahavas Yisrael is not the entire Torah, right? Because we have other things, other mitzvahs we have to fulfill. Therefore, in this world, it's important that the Jewish people have Torah in order that through having Torah, we can connect to God. This is the great principle, that Torah is, that through Torah, that's how we can actualize our connection to God in this world. All right. I hope you got that. All righty.
A little bit. Can't say I got it completely. But next year I'll learn it.
Exactly. All right, folks. We'll see you by Tanya in a few moments.